BBC News at 9 o'clock. The Local Government Association, which represents councils in England and Wales, has called for an outright ban on the sale of disposable vapes by next year. The vaping industry says such a move would undermine efforts to encourage smokers to quit. But David Fothergill from the LGA says there are concerns about children's health and the environment.
Disposable vapes are either going on the floor, unfortunately, in which case they're causing significant problems for communities, or they're going into recycling and refuse, in which case they're causing a big problem for councils because of the lithium batteries within them. And once the lithium batteries are crushed, they become a real fire risk, and that causes a problem for the recycling equipment and for the recycling centres.
The chairman of the Commons Energy Security and Net Zero Committee has described a government scheme aimed at helping hundreds of thousands of households pay their energy bills last winter as a staggering failure. A BBC investigation has found that more than 80% of households eligible for £400 from the scheme didn't get the money. The government said it spent billions to protect families when prices rose during the winter. A fierce heatwave is continuing to grip much of southern Europe. Several areas of Italy, Greece, France and Spain are experiencing extreme temperatures. Sicily and Sardinia could see temperatures climb as high as 49 Celsius. A 59-year-old architect has been charged in New York State in connection with a series of unsolved killings known as the Gilgo Beach murders. In all, 11 bodies were found more than a decade ago along an isolated stretch of coast in Long Island. Rex Heuermann, who denies the charges, has been accused of the murder of 3 women. A court in Rome has suspended a ruling that a brown bear should be put down for mauling a jogger to death in the Alps. Judges ruled that while the bear should be kept in captivity for public safety, the cull order was disproportionate and unnecessary. BBC News.
This is BBC Radio 4, and we're going to join Greg Jenner at the literal beginning of time to explore the history of timekeeping. That's in You're Dead to Me this morning at 10 o'clock. Before that, it's time for Saturday Live with Nikki Beatty and Jason Mohammed.
What's going on, my boy?
A very good morning to you. If only you could see what was happening in this studio. Our 3 guests are doing jazz hands. Good morning, welcome to Saturday Live, where today we're joined by the star of TV and radio, Anita Rani, also a memoirist and a debut novelist. We'll be asking her if she's the right sort of girl and why Baby's done a runner.
Yes, a very good morning to you. Also with us, the wildlife television presenter whose bird-watching collective encourages people of colour to get out and enjoy nature, Nadine Pereira.
And to explain how a successful stand-up comedian, playwright and author struggles to have friends, we'll look to Billy No Mate's Max Dickens.
All that, plus the inheritance tracks of actor Minnie Driver.
We stick.
And hello to all our guests in the studio, Anita Rani, Max Dickens and Nadine Pereira.
What we'd like from you this morning are your best and worst wedding stories. Anita, good morning. Let's start with you. How are you?
I'm very well this morning. I've got many wedding stories. I've been to so many Punjabi weddings of relatives, friends, people I've never met. And there was one that really jumped out when I was a kid, and we were waiting for the groom to enter the reception from outside, and he decided that he wanted to make his entrance on a horse, and he only had to travel 100 yards on this horse, and it wanted the whole wedding procession to dance around him. So the big dole drums came and played so that we would all kind of dance behind the drummer. Of course, the horse had never been to an Indian wedding. So the dole drums started playing and he didn't know what the score was. He didn't know what to do. And the groom went flying through the air and, hilarity ensued.
Try and match that, anyone.
No horses were injured, but the groom I don't know. It was quite an entrance.
Max, what about you? I mean, your book is based on you trying to figure out who the best man should be. And whether you've got a friend who could be a best man. But have you got perhaps a different story? Because we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, so when I actually got married, we got a venue, and I won't say when the venue is or what it was called, but it was one of those venues that does the food, does the bar, and does the venue. And we were told they were all split up into different bits, and therefore would all charge us different bits of money. But they all seemed to be run by different people called Sarah with different emails. So we turned up for the tasting. And I was met at the door by Sarah, and I said, "Oh, I think I've spoken to you on the phone." She said, "Oh, no, you've spoken to Sarah." I said, "Okay." And she takes us through for the tasting, and then she says, "Oh, I must go, and you'll meet my colleague in a minute." So she leaves, puts a different jumper on, comes back in and goes, "Oh, hello, I'm Sarah." And I realised that this person was pretending to be each different Sarah, but slightly changing her voice and slightly changing what she was wearing. And I looked at my wife during this tasting and just thought, what? Is this happening? Is this like a farce? Is this like some 1950s stage farce? She's going to leave, put a different wig on and come back in. But she kept it up, and I almost admired it. It was so bold. What? And we were committed to the wedding, so we went ahead with it. It was all fine. But this person, how stressful, being 3 versions of yourself.
Are you sure it wasn't triplets?
That's what I said.
Yeah, what?
When I heard this earlier, I said that maybe they're triplets.
Nadeem, what about you?
I've got one. So I had we discussed one before we went on air, but I think I've just remembered another one.
Okay, breaking news.
This is
It's
always
because of the whole
dangerous.
story. You had to up your game because of my whole story.
I'm gonna start with a disclaimer. I was a younger man at the time.
Is there anything illegal in
There's
this?
nothing illegal.
And you
Just
won't name anyone, will
illegal.
you?
It will be illegal on the grounds of friendship.
Okay.
In the arena of friendship, it might be illegal. So I had a really good friend that I grew up with. We went to school together and stayed friends into our adult life. Then found out he was becoming married. He got married like quite a couple of years ago, which is quite young, if you ask me. And the night before his wedding, we had to get an early train out into like the suburbs somewhere just outside North London. And I decided to like party in Hackney the night before. Yeah, a younger man, a much, much younger man. Let me reiterate that point.
There's nothing wrong with partying in Hackney.
I mean, there's something wrong when you miss your friend's wedding. Yeah, there's something wrong. That's what happened. I missed my friend's wedding.
It's a good party.
But I called him. He was very understanding, and I took him and his wife out for a lovely dinner in Hackney. So
Blimey.
up to them,
These
yeah.
are all great stories. So if you listening have a wedding story that you'd like to share, it can be moving, it can be funny, disastrous, as in you didn't make it. Email Saturday Live
And you're still friends.
bbc.co.uk. If you're texting, it's 84844 and you will be charged at your standard message rate. So check with your network provider. And if you're tweeting, use the hashtag BBC Saturday Live.
Yes, please do get in touch. Countryfile, Woman's Hour and dazzling audiences on the Strictly dance floor. Anita Rani is a hugely popular and award-winning presenter with a career spanning nearly 20 years across television and radio. Born in Bradford, Anita is a proud Yorkshire woman who this year was honoured by being named the Chancellor of Bradford University. Her Indian ancestry is one that means a lot to her. We saw that from the powerful stories of her family's past on the BBC programme Who Do You Think You Are, where we learned the tragic impact that the partition of India had on them. What she learned during the programme, she says, had a huge impact on her, and she revisited the country in the documentary My Family, Partition and Me, where she explored the impact that had on 3 other British families. And it was these sort of experiences that led her to write her memoir, The Right Sort of Girl, back in 2021, and planted the seed for her debut novel, Baby There's a Runner, released next week. Good morning, how are you?
Morning, yeah, what an intro. That's
What
exactly,
an intro.
That's exactly how it happened. My
Isn't
life
that-
changed when I filmed my Who Do You Think You
Yeah.
Are, and now here I am.
Yeah, so let's talk about writing. Have you got the literary bug now then?
Yeah, I loved writing my memoir. I think when you're a kid and you like words and you kind of sit there, I was one of those awkward teenagers who loved sitting in my bedroom listening to music and thinking I could be a poet in the future. Embarrassing. No one will ever see those words. But yeah, writing the memoir was just a game changer. I absolutely loved having creative control, having a creative outlet, having a space where I could just sit and be on my own, which is very different to everything else I do in my life.
What sort of music?
Well, when I was
You
a
listen to it,
teenager,
yeah.
loads of stuff.
Yeah.
Nirvana, Pearl Jam, a lot of dance music.
Good choices.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to date myself if I give you all the
That's fine.
all the
I went to see
references.
Pulp this week and I've been telling everyone all about it. Don't worry about that.
Oh no, that was great, brilliant. Yeah, so I mean, music was just my saviour. Music is throughout my memoir and also throughout the novel as well.
Amazing. So let's start with the new book, Baby Does a Runner.
Yep.
From the top of the blurb, it says, Baby Saul has had it with just about everything. She's fed up with her job and her colleagues. Should the Woman's Hour team of BBC Radio 4 be concerned at all?
No,
Okay, good answer.
it's got nothing to do with that.
Right, okay. But where did that inspiration come from then?
What, that she's fed up with her job?
Yeah.
You know, she's kind of... I mean, anybody listening can possibly relate. I don't know. She's in her mid-30s. She's working in marketing. She's been overlooked. She's a woman of colour. She's Punjabi. She's from Bradford. And she's sort of dedicated 10 years of her life, 10 years of her liver to this job. And she never gets the promotions. So, you know, she's hit a wall. And also she's got a lot of things going on at home. And so she's just got to that point in her life where she's in crisis.
Why is she called Saul? What sort of name is Saul? Because it's Saul.
Yeah, it's a Punjabi name.
But is that a common Punjabi name?
I don't know if it's common. I wanted to give her something that I guess it denotes her caste, as surnames do in Punjab, in India. So anybody who is Punjabi will be able to figure out her caste. I haven't stated it, but it's quite important in the story because we travel back in time in this story of Baby. She discovers some letters from 1940s India. And yes.
Amazing.
Yes, and she discovers a family secret. She thinks these letters are from her grandmother to her grandfather, but they're actually from another woman to her grandfather. And so she becomes fixated on who this woman is. And we all know what happens when Julia Roberts goes to India and has her Eat, Pray, Love. But what happens when a British Indian woman goes to India and wants to discover something about herself and her family?
How difficult is that process, though, Anita? You know, you're writing your memoir, for example, and all those stories are flooding back to you, and here you are now writing, you know, your debut novel. How different a process is that creatively?
Yeah, different. I mean, the memoir, I gave a lot away in the memoir, more than I thought I would. But when you're sitting on your own and just tapping away, it all just comes out. You know, I could have had therapy or just gone and talked to my mates, but I decided to just write a book about it. And it's out there now. And the novel, I had this story. I mean, it's loosely based on my own experience. So anyone who has followed my journey and knows about my Who Do You Think You Are and discovering what happened to my grandfather during partition, it's loosely based on that, but not really. It's also the story of a lot of South Asian women in Britain. And I feel like we are quite overlooked. We're seen as quite binary and two-dimensional. So I wanted to bust that open, smash a few stereotypes. And also I'm honouring a generation of women who are probably one of the most non-seen demographics in this country, South Asian women of our grandmother's generation, or all women of our grandmother's generation. We don't see them as having feelings and thoughts and desires. So, you know, I wanted to delve into what women who were alive in the 1940s might have been experiencing.
And I mentioned it in the introduction. You just mentioned Who Do You Think You Are? How pivotal a moment was that, not just in your television career, because we know you from the radio and television, but in terms of your life too? Massive,
huge. Absolutely fundamentally changed something in me, and you all saw it happen. I interviewed a chap in a Gurdwara, in a Sikh temple in India, who told me something so devastating that happened to women. I don't know if I should probably say it, but give a trigger warning to everybody. So I just basically, if you haven't seen it, my grandfather was in the British Indian Army. Turns out he was married and had 2 children before he married my nan. We knew he had a wife. I didn't know he had 2 children. I didn't know he had a daughter. So I went off to discover what happened to this woman who I became obsessed with, his first wife. And so I interviewed this Sikh gentleman who told me that he was about 8 years old during partition, and he remembers overhearing a conversation between his father and all the adult men in the family who took the decision to, it's very hard to say actually, to behead all the women in the family so that they wouldn't be abducted or murdered or raped by anyone else. And so he then witnessed this happening. And it absolutely, I'm sorry, it's very triggering.
No, I can imagine.
And it's incredibly emotional.
Take your time.
Yeah, it completely shook me to my core, because it just made me realise that I'm probably the first generation of women in my entire ancestry who has choice about her life. And this is only 2 generations ago. It's only my grandmother's generation. And so it really, I don't know much about intergenerational trauma. I know it's talked about a lot, but it felt like
Stored in you.
Yeah, it's completely connected with something inside me that's been passed down and has, without getting too woo-woo, has changed something about me.
And can I just ask you that? You know, when these ideas get presented to you, I know a bit about this, working in TV and radio, you know, sometimes you take them and you read them and you think, this seems like a really good idea. Did you have any understanding, any clue from the commissioners what you were about to do and reveal about yourself and your family?
No, Who Do You Think You Are is a really different experience. I mean, I wasn't a TV presenter in this context. I was just a person discovering something about her personal life. And I wasn't treated as a TV presenter. So I knew nothing. And
but in the eyes of the audience, you are, aren't you?
Yeah, but I don't know what I'm about to experience.
Yeah.
And they really do keep it a secret from you. And you are then just sat in a situation and told, start a conversation and off you go. And I guess you know it because when you watch Who Do You Think You Are, which we all do, and it's such an incredible series, you're experiencing it through the eyes of the person. So if people are really invested, they take you with them on that journey. And that was sort of, okay, this is a crazy film reference, but it's almost like a Dusk Till Dawn moment, where the film starts as one thing and then it turns into something completely different. That was the moment my Who Do You Think You Are just became so real. And I became so invested in this story, and it just became something completely different.
You are one of the busiest women in show business.
Could always be busier.
Now's a good time to say that, at 9:16 on Saturday the 15th of July on BBC Radio 4. But where does your incredible work ethic come from, Anita?
I get asked this a lot. It doesn't even feel like a work ethic. It's just my personality. I love getting up in the morning. I love life. And energy is, it's lovely to have it. And obviously it comes from my parents, right? My grandfather came to this country in 1954, moved to Bradford. I used to always say to him, Grandad, you could have gone anywhere. Why Bradford? But you know what? I'm a proud Yorkshire lass, and I always bang on about Bradford.
I love that
Everyone
about
knows
you.
that. Yeah,
That's amazing.
absolutely, and I love it. And I, cut me in, I bleed Yorkshire and all of that. But nobody worked harder than my parents. Nobody. No one works harder than that generation of people who came to this country to make something of their lives. And not just my parents, all their social circle who I saw growing up around me. These people had nothing and worked from scratch to do everything and have built really successful lives for themselves and their children and their grandchildren. So what? I do is nothing. Like me getting up in the morning and going and filming Countryfile or coming to Cardiff to talk to you. Is this hard work? I don't know.
You do a lot more than just getting up in the morning.
Yeah.
Nadeem.
I just want to jump in and say it's like...
Please do.
So, as, I come from immigrant family as well. Shout out all the hardworking immigrant families, yeah. But you say they worked hard before you, but also you're laying the groundwork for future generations. And the future generations will look up to yourself and myself like we did our parents as well. So
Very
we're doing
true.
important work here too.
Very true. And yeah, I guess it's exactly what Nadeem's saying. And actually, I guess it comes back to that moment. I realised I had a purpose, and that purpose is to kind of make sure that, there's a voice for South Asian women. And someone is banging the drum a little bit.
Do you feel that responsibility then as your career has developed as a trailblazer?
I don't feel it as a responsibility. I just feel like people often ask me if I'm representing. I don't think you can represent. I think you can just be yourself. And if people watching or listening can relate to that, then that's great. But I've only ever been able to just be me. But now what I'm doing is properly being me. I think for the first part of my career, I really dialed myself down because you feel like you have to adapt to fit into situations. You don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable with your ethnicity and identity and all of that. So you kind of learn the rules, which in itself is a skill, right?
Yeah.
Being able to, morph and adapt into any situation. But I'm kind of over that now. I feel like I've got to a place where I'm just going to be me and and that's enough.
Can we talk about Bradford? Because
Yes.
you try to give back to your Bradford community in many ways. And in March, you were announced that you were the Chancellor of the university. So what does that mean? What does that entail?
I know, right? When the email came through, I thought, do they mean Anita Anand?
They got the right Anita.
They got the wrong Anita. Shout out to the awesome Anita Anand. Yeah, it's incredible because I have spent sort of 20 years living in London and I love London life. I love it, love it, love it. Going, it'd be great for someone to go back to Bradford I've been given an opportunity to give back to a city that gave me so much and connect to my roots, and it is incredible because education is such a huge part of what I bang on about, particularly for girls, right? You educate a woman and you change not just her life, but the lives of every single generation after her. And so, so they've got I don't know, I feel like, I sort of went up last week for the Bradford Literature Festival, and I realised I was just like in a crazy jumpsuit that my mate had made out of a bedsheet and my high top trainers. And I arrived at Bradford University and I thought, I'm the Chancellor of this place. Should I have worn a suit? And my mate was like, no, this is exactly what you should be doing. But it's amazing. We had such a huge party for my installation and the student body are just brilliant. But the Vice Chancellor, Shirley Condon, is remarkable. They've got this, the students know who she is and have a chant for her because she's so loved.
What would your chant be? What would we want it to be? We'll have a think about that before the end of the show. But what do you actually have to do?
So I have to. Well, I'm going to do the graduation ceremonies next week. So I'll make a speech and shake everyone's hands and give them a high five. Maybe do a little dance. Disrupt the system. I can do whatever I want, really. And we've got quite a few plans. I'm going to launch a scholarship. So really exciting stuff. I want to be quite hands-on as much as I can be. Yeah.
So where did you go to university?
Leeds.
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 I was